Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 60 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. Surprise! I know last episode I said I'd be back on Sunday, but there's some stuff I wanted to talk about today, so I thought I'd do a show today. So yeah, and then I'll probably do a show sometime next week, but I'm not sure. But I thought I would do a show today. Um, got a lot of cool stuff I want to talk about. But before I get started, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you like this show, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, spread the word, tell your friends. Also, if you have a comment, a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. I am feeling a tad under the weather today, but I wanted to do a show today, and I am taking plenty of Dayquil. So there is that. So I do apologize if I need to do what I just did and clear my throat often during this show. So let's get started with this today. So I mentioned yesterday on yesterday's episode that there's this new um, comedy coming from Judd Apatow with Glenn Powell. It's about this country western star in freefall. And there's been some interesting, at least in my mind, interesting casting news and possibly concerning casting news regarding this movie. This article is on Deadline, published by Justin Kroll. This article says that Lee Jin Hao is the latest comedian to join Glenn Powell in a new original untitled comedy at Universal with Judd Apatow. I'm sorry. To join Glenn Powell in a new original untitled comedy at Universal that Judd Apatow is on board to direct. Now, this article also does point out that Judd Apatow and Powell co-wrote the movie. So Lee Jin Hao. I have to be honest, I'm not familiar with Lee Jin Hao. This article does point out that he was born in China and raised in Singapore, and he served in the Singapore Army, so that's awesome. And then he moved to Scotland to study at St. Andrews. And then he was a finalist for both the BBC New Comedy Awards 2020 in 2023 and the Chortle Student Comedian of the Year in 2022 before going to Edinburgh Fringe in 2024 with his debut Our Swimming in a Submarine. Okay, so he's a stand-up comedian. He's not an actor. Okay, that could be concerning. I mean, we've seen people from other professions transition to acting, right? And continue, like, there are people who transition to acting and then they do other stuff and then they go back to acting, and so maybe it will be the case here. But I said last time that I don't know about this movie. I just don't know. I said last episode that I think Glenn Powell needs a hit. and I don't. Uh, I I I I question this move. I guess. I mean, we'll see what happens. Um, but I question this move. Uh, casting a stand-up comic. Um, who knows? It could be a case of like maybe he's transitioning to acting and making that his profession, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I this and I love Judd Apatow as a filmmaker, and I like Glenn Powell, but I think he needs a hit, and I don't think this is the right move. This is terrible in my opinion. I don't see the appeal of this. I question this decision. But we'll see what happens. It could work out and it could be great. But I don't know. As of right now, I question this decision. But I've been wrong before. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about Lee Jin Hao joining this Judd Apatow, Glenn Powell comedy. All right, so a bit of sad news. Moving on here, a bit of sad news happened. I believe it was. It was back on March 23rd. Um, Valerie Perrin, who was an actress, um, she died on March 23rd. Um, she was probably best known for she played Honey Bruce in the 1974 film Lenny, which is a biopic about Lenny Bruce, and it stars Dustin Hoffman, and it was directed by Bob Fosse. Um, she was probably best known for that, and then uh, she got an Oscar for that movie. I actually I haven't seen that movie, and I would like to because I love Dustin Hoffman and I love biopics. Um, but she was also in 1972. She was in this kind of military science fiction dramedy called Slaughterhouse Five, which was directed by George Roy Hill, and it's based on the novel. Um, and it um, the the I'm sorry, the author of the novel um, was very he praised the film. Um, the author wrote about the film soon after its release, and this is a quote here. He said, "I love George Roy Hill and Universal Pictures, who made a flawless translation of my novel Slaughterhouse Five to the silver screen. I drool and cackle every time I watch that film because it is so harmonious with what I felt when I wrote the book." Um, she was also Valerie Perrin. Was she played Miss Tessmacher in the first two Christopher Reeve Superman films that were directed by Richard Donner. And I adore those films. I think especially the first one. Um, it's the granddaddy of them all. But she played Miss Tessmacher, um, and you know, uh, and it was she those were the roles that she's best known for. But I mean, and she was completely gorgeous. Um, and it was just a wonderful. Uh, when I heard that Valerie Perrin died, my first thought was, Miss Tessmacher from Superman, you know, but um, I need to see uh, uh, Lenny. I need to see Lenny. She was also in this movie. She also appeared in this movie called The Electric Horseman, which was directed by Sidney Pollack, which I haven't seen. Um, and it stars Robert Redford and Jane Fonda. And it's about this former rodeo champion who is hired by a cereal company to become its spokesperson. Cereal, as in the food. Um, it's about this former rodeo champion who was hired by a cereal company to become its spokesperson, and then runs away on a $12 million electric lit horse and costume he's given to promote it. After he finds out that the horse has been abused, and I need to see that. But again, I think of uh, uh, Slaughterhouse Five, and I think of Miss Tessmacher from Superman. So I just wanted to say a few words about Valerie Perrin. Um, and even, I mean, she was 82. You know, and she died on March 23rd. And uh, you know, yeah, I just wanted to say a few words. Moving on here. Um, what's weird is that I never know. I never know how. In this, I'm speaking strictly as a YouTuber. I never know the proper way to transition from sad news from sad news to new topics. I always struggle to find a way to transition to something more pleasant. Um, Man, we've lost a lot of good ones so far this year. Man, that sucks. Um, so in more pleasant news, um, I've been in the build up to um, Spider-Man: Brand New Day, which looks great, and Avengers: Doomsday. Um, which, to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure. Just on a side note, I'm not quite sure if I'm more excited for Avengers: Doomsday or Doom Part 3. I know they both release on the same day. I might see Doom 3 first because I I I've read the books that these three movies are based on, and I dearly love the movies. I love the books and I love the movies, and I never. I remember after walking out of the theater for part one, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to see part two right now. Like, but anyway, but I don't know. I've seen the trailer for both movies, all the trailers for both movies. Man, Doom Part 3 looks awesome. And Doom Part 2, like, I just want to say it real quick. I was on the phone with my best friend Mike Shreve, and he he was asking me. I guess he had recently watched Dune Part 1 or Part 2 or both. And I don't think he had seen it in the theater. And I was on the phone with him, and he asked me, have you seen it? And I was like, oh yeah. And he was like, did you read the books? And I said, yeah. And he said, how do you feel about the book to film like how do you feel about how they adapted the book? And I was like, honestly, I'd put it right up there with Lord of the Rings. Like, I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Like, it was incredible. And Dune Part 3 looks insane. This could end up being one of the great trilogies, one of the great film trilogies ever. Ever. But anyway, so in my build up to getting back to the topic at hand, in the build up to Spider-Man Brand New Day and I almost said Avengers Doomsday. Building up to Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday, I've been watching a lot of the Marvel stuff that and some of it I haven't seen, and some of it I haven't seen in a long time. And one of the shows that I haven't seen, and I'm eventually going to get to it, is this new series Wonder Man, and I've heard it's great. I've heard it's one of the best Disney Plus shows that Marvel has done. Well, there is good news regarding the future of Wonder Man. This article is on Variety, published by Joe Otterson. And this article says, the Marvel television series Wonder Man has been renewed for Season 2 at Disney+. The news comes around 2 months after the series launched, with 8 episodes of the first season debuting on the streamer on January 27th. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Ben Kingsley starred in the series as Simon Williams and Trevor Slattery, respectively. Both will return for Season 2. That's pretty cool. So, the series was created by Destin Daniel Cretton and Andrew Guest. Andrew Guest will return as the showrunner and executive producer, while Cretton will return. Destin Daniel Cretton will return as director and executive producer. Now, for those who don't know, Destin Daniel Cretton, he has, prior to Wonder Man, he directed for Marvel before and will again. He directed Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is awesome. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is a badass movie. And he is directing Spider-Man Brand New Day. So he's got experience working with Marvel and directing Marvel projects. He also directed this movie called Just Mercy with Jamie Foxx, Brie Larson, and Michael B. Jordan. All three of those, Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx and Brie Larson, are now, by the way, all three of them are Oscar winners. But yeah, so Destin Daniel Cretton, it doesn't seem like he's getting tired of working with Marvel. So this is great news. I haven't watched Wonder Man yet. I've heard it's amazing. I think that I think this is good news for the future of Marvel, and I think I've heard I've heard of the I've heard from other YouTubers that they think that this is a surprise that it got renewed for season two, and I don't know that I would consider it a surprise. Um, and I don't know that for a fact. Like, I don't know if they were ever planning on making a season two. I don't know. All I know is that I've heard the show is great, and judging by the response from the show, um, maybe they decided on doing a season. I don't know if it. I'm saying I don't know that I would consider it a surprise because I don't know if they were planning on doing more. Like if they weren't, and then they were just, oh, let's do season two. Then okay, cool. Um, but yeah, and I've heard great things about the show, and it getting renewed for season two, I think is I think signifies that audiences enjoy the show as well. Um, so that's good news. I need to get to watching the show because again I've heard it's amazing. But Wonder Man has been renewed for season two. Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. All right, so we go from good news to a bit of disappointing news. And I guess it's disappointing, but it kind of makes sense. So one of, uh, you know, I really, I guess that a film franchise that has surprised me is the Jumanji Jumanji film franchise. Um, the original Jumanji with Robin Williams is very near and dear to a lot of people, including myself. Even though it has its flaws, I really enjoyed that movie. And let's be honest, the second one, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, which was the first one that I'm meaning the second Jumanji movie, but the first one that had The Rock and Kevin Hart. Let's be honest, that movie had no business being as good as it was. Nobody thought it was going to be any good, and it was awesome. Jumanji 2 was Jumanji. It was Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. That movie was awesome. And then what was the other one? What was the one after that? Jumanji: The Next Level. Um, yeah, that one. I thoroughly enjoyed as well, but and um, but I think it was and I don't like to harp on this, but I don't like to compare films I've never subscribed to the theory that a sequel or a remake or anything like that it has to be better than the original. I know I harp on that quite a bit. Just make it a good movie. Just make it enjoyable. So I really Jumanji the first one with the Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black and Karen Gillan, that one was awesome. I did enjoy Jumanji: The Next Level. I thought the previous one was better, but I thought the Jumanji: The Next Level was really good. And you know, there's going to be a technically a fourth Jumanji movie, the third one with The Rock and Karen Gillan. And it's going to be the final one. It's going to end the franchise. And there's been a bit of disappointing news regarding that movie, but it kind of makes sense. This article is on CBR, published by Jamie Lovett. Let's see here. This article says Jumanji fans will have to wait a bit longer and take some time out of their holiday before returning to the jungle. By the way, I kind of have a love hate relationship with. I kind of have a love hate thing with like articles that put film related puns in news pieces before returning to the jungle. I love it, but at the same time, sometimes it can be kind of silly. But anyway, um, on Tuesday, so this was let's see, this was on March 21st. It was Sony Columbia Pictures announced that it had delayed the release of Jumanji 3, technically Jumanji 4, by 2 weeks from its previously announced date of December 11th to Christmas Day, December 25th. So now it's going to release the week after. So if I look at my calendar here, so now Avengers Doomsday and Dune Part 3 will open on December 18th, and then the week after that will be Jumanji, now that Jumanji has been delayed. And I have to say, this is I have to say while I'm disappointed because, you know, personally I don't like when films get delayed because I just want them now. But this move makes sense because let's face it, and I think, and I've read some articles about this. I think either Avengers Doomsday or Dune Part 3 should move too, because both of them, one of them, when you release two huge movies like that, they're essentially they're on the same weekend. They're not going to make as much money as they would if you release them on separate weekends. You're essentially making audiences choose what to see on opening weekend. So I like the fact that now Jumanji 3 is going to be released after Avengers Doomsday and Dune Part 3, because if you released it before Avengers Doomsday and Dune Part 3, there was I feel that there might have been a feeling of, you know, let's wait to see Jumanji 3 until after Avengers Doomsday and Dune Part 3. Like, let's save our money, you know, for those movies. But now you can wait. Now you can see Jumanji after those two movies, and I think that's a good move, because I think Jumanji. I think now Jumanji is going to make more money. Could be more financially successful now that it's coming out after those movies. I still think that either Avengers Doomsday or Dune Part 3 should move. I think that's a mistake to release them both on the same day. I think Dune should move. Because I think Dune Part 3, and as much as I am ecstatic about that movie, I personally am, I think Dune Part 3 is going to get eaten alive by Avengers Doomsday. I really do. But going back to Jumanji 3, I'm glad that it's now opening after these two movies, because it's not as, while it is a it's just, I'm having trouble having to explain it, but it just makes sense financially, like having, you don't want to make audiences choose which movies to see, which of these big budget blockbusters to see in such a short period of time. And I think moving Jumanji 3 to the week after Avengers Doomsday and Dune Part 3, having it released before might cause people to go to say, no, let's wait to see Jumanji 3 until after we see these other two movies. Well, now they can. I think now Jumanji 3 is gonna be more financially successful, because people aren't waiting to see it now. I don't know if what I said made any sense at all, but those are my thoughts. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about this. All right, so moving on here, there's some interesting news regarding excuse me, regarding an upcoming Disney live action. It would be a Disney live action spinoff, I guess. And I've said before, I personally have enjoyed most of the Disney live action remakes. Not all of them, but most of them. And this one is surprising, for me, at least. I don't know about anybody else. So, this article is on Joe Blow, published by Steve Saig. This article says, in a surprise announcement, Disney said it's developing a live-action Cinderella spin-off titled Stepsisters that is going to focus on Anastasia and Drizella, the two evil stepsisters from Cinderella, with Akiva Schaffer, Akiva Schaffer in line to direct. Now, Akiva Schaffer directed one of my favorite movies of last year, the Naked Gun movie with Liam Neeson. That movie is hilarious, and it's a great film, and it was one of my top 5 favorite movies of last year. It's great. It's so good. And to see Liam Neeson has done everything under the sun. I mean, and him in the Naked Gun, it's just like he's done everything, and then to see him be great at something he'd never done. Like, I would love to see Liam Neeson do more comedies. That'd be hilarious. But anyway, so I loved The Naked Gun, and Akiva Schaffer, who directed that movie, is going to direct Stepsisters. Now, this live-action Stepsisters movie that is going to focus on Anastasia and Drizella. I have questions, and I don't know if, like, I have questions, I have concerns. Like, would it be cool if, so the live action remake of Cinderella that came out 10 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago, are they going to get the two actresses who played the stepsisters from that movie to play the stepsisters in this movie? That could be interesting. That could be cool. if not, then I don't know if there is going to be an audience for this movie. Like, I don't know, like, is Cinderella just going to make a cameo in this movie? Like, is anybody going to go see a Cinderella spinoff that focuses on the stepsisters? I mean, I would, because that sounds interesting. Like, there's so many ways you could there's so many there's I think there's interesting character stuff you could do there. But I don't know. I think there would be more of an audience for it if you got the two actresses who played the stepsisters in the live action Cinderella movie to play the stepsisters in this movie. If you got two different actresses, I don't know if this movie is going to succeed. I also it kind of be like, it was announced a little while ago that they're going to do a Gaston movie without Luke Evans, like a live action Gaston movie without Luke Evans, and I'm like, who would see that? Like, Luke Evans is Gaston. Like, who's going to see this movie? But anyway, that's my question, and I don't know if anybody would have the answers at this point in the development of this movie. But there is this Stepsisters movie, and I have concerns, I have questions, and I think they are valid. But what do I know? What do you guys think about Akiva Schaffer directing this Cinderella Stepsisters movie? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. All right, so this next bit of news, I am deliriously excited for. So it's so it's so wild. So so for those, you all know that there's going to be this Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum movie that's going to take place in the time period where Gandalf and in the Fellowship of the Ring, that time period where Gandalf and Aragorn are hunting for Gollum. I looked everywhere for the creature Gollum, but the enemy found him first. It was a terrible Gandalf, but there's that movie coming. Well, there is another live action movie. There's another Lord of the Rings movie coming. This article is on MovieWeb, published by Jonathan Fugue. This article says, Warner Brothers is taking us back to Middle-earth in a big way, with the studio announcing that a new Lord of the Rings sequel is now in the works. It's not really a sequel, but we'll get to that. Director Peter Jackson, who helmed both the beloved Academy Award-winning original trilogy and the subsequent Hobbit adaptation, took to X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, to announce that a follow-up titled The Lord of the Rings: Shadows of the Past, excuse me, is in early production with late night host, comedian, and avid J.R.R. Tolkien fan Stephen Colbert now penning the script and revealing the first plot details. So, um, uh, let's see. Let me read this article here because this is very important. Peter Jackson was on, I believe, he appeared on late night, the Stephen Colbert late night show via video chat. Peter Jackson then revealed a very special partner and the person who will work alongside him. On this newly announced sequel, Stephen Colbert. A lifelong fan of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings, Colbert and Jackson go way back, with the late night host featuring in a cameo in Jackson's The Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug back in 2013. That's true. It's a blink and you'll miss it cameo. I think it was actually in the Battle of the Five Armies, but I could be wrong. It's in either Desolation of Smaug or the Battle of the Five Armies. I think this article is correct. I think it's Desolation of Smaug, but it is a blink and you'll miss it cameo. Of joining the beloved franchise, Colbert said, "You know what the books mean to me and what your films mean to me. But the thing I found myself reading over and over again were the 6 chapters early on in The Fellowship of the Ring that y'all never developed into the first movie back in the day. It's basically the chapter 3 is Company through Fog on the Barrow Downs, so chapters 3 through 7. And I thought, oh wait, maybe that could be its own story that could fit into the larger story. Could we make something that was completely faithful to the books while also being completely faithful to the movies that you guys had already made?" Colbert went on to reveal how the idea behind The Lord of the Rings, Shadows of the Past, was formed, with the talk show host first running the idea past his son, the screenwriter Peter McGee, before taking it to Peter Jackson. Over the past 2 years, the pair, alongside The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and King Kong writer Philippa Boyens, now that's key. It's not just Stephen Colbert and his son developing the script and writing the story. Philippa Boyens, who wrote who's a writer on Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and King Kong, they have developed this script with Philippa Boyens. The sequel will be based on chapters 3 is Company, through 7, Fog on the Barrow Downs, of the first novel, The Fellowship of the Ring, which were largely absent from Jackson's adaptation and featured the enigma that is Tom Bombadil, with the first logline having also been released alongside the announcement. 14 years after the passing of Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin set out to retrace the first steps of their adventure. Meanwhile, Sam's daughter, Eleanor, has discovered a long-buried secret and is determined to uncover why the War of the Ring was very nearly lost before it even began. Okay. First things first. These chapters that were absent from Peter Jackson's film, I understand and I completely agree with Peter Jackson's reasoning for leaving that part out of the film. I get it. And it makes sense for the story that they were telling, for the story that they wanted to tell in their adaptation of Lord of the Rings. I know a lot of people feel differently, and that's fine. There, Christopher Lee once said, the great Christopher Lee once said, there are lots of things in all the movies that are not in the books, and I think they're, for the most part, they're improvements. And I agree with him, and I agree with Peter Jackson, who chose to leave that out of the film. And again, I understand a lot of people feel differently, and that's fine. However, for me, I think this is an example of wish fulfillment, of fan service in the best way. Because I feel like you got Philippa Boyens, who was a writer on Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and King Kong. You have Stephen Colbert's son, who is a screenwriter. And you have Colbert himself involved. And anybody who knows anything about Stephen Colbert, that man is... he bleeds Tolkien. He bleeds Lord of the Rings. Like, he just has this encyclopedic knowledge of Lord of the Rings. I think he's been, like, I've personally, like, sometimes he's had, like, on the, back when he did the Colbert Report and now in Late Night, you know, people would go on and ask him trivia. I think he's been stumped only once, maybe twice. That man, and I, you know, and so him having such, not just a love for the material, and love for the, not just for the books, but for the films. I think he called the Lord of the Rings film trilogy the greatest film trilogy of all time, which I'm not, he may not be wrong. It's not just the love that he has for both the books and the films. It's the knowledge that he has about the world of Middle-earth. I think that, like this article, like Stephen Colbert said, you get Philippa Boyens, who wrote Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and King Kong. You get his son, who was a screenwriter, Peter McGee, and him involved. I think this, weaving the Tom Bombadil chapters, I think they're going to find a way to make it work. I really believe that this is going to work. And I think this is going to be a lot of... And again, I completely understand and agree with Peter Jackson's reasoning as to why they weren't in the movie back in the day. I get it. But there are a lot of people who feel differently. And I also think that, so for the people who have always felt differently, I think this is going to be great news for them. And I also think this is going to be much like the Hunt for Golem movie. This is going to be a way to bridge the gaps, bridge the time gaps in the films so that you can watch Fellowship of the Ring, stop it at a certain point, watch The Hunt for Gollum, stop it at a certain point, and then watch Shadows of the Past. You know, and just then continue to watch Fellowship. Because let's face it, the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings films, they are the books. You know, it's truly epic. You know, like I remember one day I was really really sick uh for 2 or 3 days, and I watched all three Lord of the Rings extended versions of the films. And after it was all over, I felt like Frodo. I was like, man, I'm tired. I was like, man, that was an ordeal. But I think I really look. I really think that this is a great way to, um, like I said, connect the um, books, connect the films to the books in an even more direct way. I think the trick is, and I believe in the creative people involved. I believe in Philip Boyens. I believe in um, Stephen Colbert, and I believe in Peter McGee. The trick is Tom Bombadil. Getting that character to work in a way that works in an adaptation. Like, ideally, I think you stop Fellowship of the Ring at a certain point, switch over to this Shadows of the Past movie, and then switch back to Fellowship of the Ring in an ideal world. I think the key is making Tom Bombadil work, because I think and I say this respectfully, Tom Bombadil is kind of a goofy character, and you want to make that character work not just for the to make people of the you want to make that character work both for fans of the book and for fans of the film, because you don't want to have a goofy character mess with the tone of the rest of the other Lord of the Rings movies. You don't want to do that. So that's, I think, the key, and I think they'll make it work. What's interesting about this, and I wanted to get to this, that this is going to be after the passing of Frodo. The other hobbits are remembering the first steps of their adventure, and it's going to involve Sam's daughter. Now, originally, that's when they say it's a sequel, that's what they mean. It's like, it takes place after the passing of Frodo, but most of the movie it sounds like it's going to be about these 6 chapters here. So I have to admit, when I initially heard that it's going to be a sequel and it's going to be the other hobbits remembering the first part of the journey, and I'm like, well, no, nobody wants to see that, because we can just, like, why do we have to go back and, like, they're remembering what we've already seen, you know? But then I heard about what the story's going to be, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. What would be really interesting, and this is for this is a little fun bit of trivia. Um, and I want to make sure I get this right before I continue. Um, so the in Return of the King, the movie, at the end of that film, when Sam, there's that, there's the scene with Sam, and he's in the garden, and he picks up his daughter, and he says, "Well, I'm back," which is the last line of the book. He says, "Well, I'm back," and he walks in the door. Sam's daughter is played by Sean Astin's real life daughter, uh, Alexandra Aston. What would be really interesting and really kind of fun is if they got Alexandra Aston to play Eleanor again. That would be fun, and that would be a fun nod back to Return of the King. Look, I think this is going to work. Now, I don't know who's going to direct. And to be honest, the Fog on the Barrow Downs, chapter 8. Fog on the Barrow Downs. That's some creepy shit. That's some creepy shit, and that would be cool to see on screen. It would be really, really cool. It doesn't say who's going to direct, but I believe, look, I have no doubt because I told my wife Katie this about this, and she was like, "But Stephen Colbert isn't a writer." So I have no doubt that Stephen Colbert being involved in this movie as a writer might raise a few eyebrows. But he's not it it in he's not the sole writer of the movie. He's working with other established screenwriters to write the story and write the script. If it were just him, I'd be a little worried. But his son is a screenwriter. Philippa Boyens wrote Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit movies, King Kong, the 2005 film. He's working with other established screenwriters, by the way, Academy Award winning screenwriters, to work on this. And I believe in that. I believe, and it's not just Stephen. Like I said, Stephen Colbert has an encyclopedic knowledge of this world. This is going to be great. I have no doubt that this is going to be great. I would love if Peter Jackson directed this. That would be cool. That would be awesome. It doesn't say who's going to direct it. But I think I'm more excited for this than The Hunt for Golem. We'll see what happens. What do you guys think? I know this was I kind of went off on this. Went on and on about this, I should say. But I think this could work. Again, I think the key is Tom Bombadil getting that character to work because he's kind of goofy and you want to make him blend in, and don't mess with the tone of the movie. But what do you guys think? Jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about The Lord of the Rings, Shadows of the Past being in early production. Okay. So moving on here, I've been talking about this Scooby-Doo live action series that's going to star McKenna Grace and the other members of um, Mystery Inc. Being cast. Well, there's been more casting news regarding that series. This article is on Variety, published by Joe Otterson. The live-action Scooby-Doo series at Netflix has cast Paul Walter Hauser in a series regular role, Variety has learned. He will be a regular on the show. No character details for Paul Walter Hauser's role are being kept under wraps, but it is going to be a series regular. So for those who don't know who Paul Walter Hauser is, I believe he played Mole Man in the Fantastic Four First Steps film. He was also in The Naked Gun with Liam Neeson, and he was great in that. He was also in this movie called Richard Jewell, which was directed by Clint Eastwood. And it's about the 1996 Atlanta Olympics bombing. And I believe, again, I always want to make sure I get my information correct, because you don't want to say anything incorrect on the internet. You know what I mean? So yeah. So the movie, Richard Jewell, the movie, is about the 1996 Atlanta Olympics bombing, and Paul Walter Hauser plays Richard Jewell, who was the security guard that discovered that the suspicious backpack in Centennial Park. And I sadly have not seen it. It's one of many Clint Eastwood movies directed by Clint Eastwood that I haven't seen. Kathy Bates is in it. She was nominated for an Oscar. I've heard it's very good. I really want to watch it. So, but Paul Walter Hauser was in that movie. So him being in, he's going to be in this Scooby-Doo Netflix series. I hope, it says a series regular role. I hope it's not a voice thing. Like, I hope he's not doing the voice of Scooby-Doo. I hope it's an on-screen thing. Maybe they're doing motion capture for Scooby-Doo, and maybe Paul Walter Hauser is going to play Scooby-Doo. I don't know. I hope it's an on-screen thing, and I hope we get to see him act. I hope it's not just voice work. I'm cautiously optimistic about this show. McKenna Grace is going to be in it now. Paul Walter Hauser is going to be in it. It's going to be an origin story, how about the Mystery Inc. solving their first case. Who knows? Who knows how this will end up? I hope it's good, but I hope it's not. I hope it's not just a voice thing. Yeah. So jump in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think about Paul Walter Hauser being in this Scooby-Doo uh, series at Netflix. So this next bit of news I find kind of awesome, actually. So real quick, Ryan Gosling is this Project Hail Mary movie is is wildly succeeding at the box office. It's and I've heard great things. Excuse me, just a second. Excuse me. I've heard great things about it. I can't wait to see it. I have a there's a regular customer who comes into where I work, and we BS for a few minutes every time she comes in, and she and her son went to go see it, and she said that her son could just not shut up about how he thought how perfect Ryan Gosling was for this role, for this movie. And evidently, a lot of people feel that way. And my wife, my sister, and I are seeing it this coming weekend. Well, it seems like, and Ryan Gosling, his career is not slowing down anytime soon, nor should it. Because this article is on Deadline, published by Justin Kroll. This article says, a little ways down here, sources tell Deadline that Ryan Gosling is set to star in Universal Pictures' untitled event film directed by the Daniels. Now, for those who don't know who the Daniels are, that's Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, the Oscar-winning duo behind Everything Everywhere All at Once. Details on the project remain under wraps, other than it is set to start production this summer in Los Angeles. So Ryan Gosling is going to work with the Daniels. Now, the Daniels have worked together, and they've done work separately. Now, Daniel Scheinert directed this movie called The Death of Dick Long, which came out in 2019. It's kind of this indie dark comedy, which I haven't seen. And then in 2026, the two of them worked together, and they directed Swiss Army Man, which starred Daniel Radcliffe and Paul Dano. That movie looks so weird, and I really want to watch it. If any of you have seen Swiss Army Man, what have you thought? Because it looks so out there. It's one of those movies, and I'll it's one of those movies that's just like, wow, like it just looks so weird. Anyway, and then they directed Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won the Oscar for Best Picture. What else did it win? It won Best Picture. Michelle Yeoh won Best Actress. Ki Kwan won Best Supporting Actor. Jamie Lee Curtis won Supporting Actress. It won Best Original Screenplay, and it won Best Film Editing. Everything Everywhere All at Once. And the best way I can uh uh the best way I can say this is it is the perfect movie for science fiction, fantasy, and horror fans. If you love those three genres, Everything Everywhere All at Once is the perfect movie for you. I loved that movie so much. Michelle Yeoh is great. Ki Kwan is great. Jamie Lee Curtis is great. She's always great. Um, Michelle Yeoh's they're all great. I mean, that movie is awesome. Um, so Ryan Gosling is going to be working with the Daniels. Now, this is going to be the Daniels' first movie since Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I find interesting because Everything Everywhere All at Once came out in 2022. You know, uh, you know, uh, it's just one of those things where it's just like, wow, Everything Everywhere All at Once was so awesome. I can't wait to see your next film. And it's been 4 years. Like, come on, guys, give us more awesomeness. But Ryan Gosling is going to be working with them. This sounds, look, plot details are under wraps. Obviously, this I will say this. Considering how awesome Everything Everywhere All at Once is, and considering how out there I've seen the trailers for Swiss Army Man. It looks absurd in the best way. I can only imagine what this Ryan Gosling movie from the Daniels is going to be like. And I can't wait. I can't wait. And I love Ryan Gosling. What's funny is that, and I was talking about this with the regular customer who comes into work. I was like, for a while, around the time when he was doing The Notebook and all that stuff, I kind of steered clear of movies that Ryan Gosling was in because, like, his female fan base is so rabid. They could just not shut up about Ryan Gosling, and I'm just like, shut up. Like, and I just, like, I couldn't, it had nothing to do with him. Like, I just, like, but then I started watching films that he was in. I was like, he is great, you know. And the movie he was in a movie with Emily Blunt that lost a lot of money, which is a shame because it's great. Is The Fall Guy. It's awesome. Fall Guy is great. He was great in Blade Runner. I remember seeing him in Remember the Titans. He was great in Blade Runner 2049. It looks great in Project Hail Mary. But yeah, he's awesome. I love that guy. He was great in First Man. He's awesome. But yeah, so he's gonna be working with the Daniels. I want to know what this movie is, and I want to know right now. Someone please tell me. But anyway, Ryan Gosling working with the Daniels. Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Okay. Couple more things here. Excuse me just a second. So I think one of the greatest actors of all time, and certainly one of everybody loves, an actor that everybody loves, is Tom Hanks. Like, I think I know one person who doesn't like Tom Hanks, and I'm like, what happened to you? Like, who hurt you? And he's great, and he's I mean, what more can be said? Um, and he's got this new movie coming. Um, so let me just get my information correct. Um, okay, so he's got this new movie coming. That sounds really interesting. Um, this article is on Joe Blow, published by Kevin Fraser. Um, this article says that Tom Hanks is heading. I love this. Tom Hanks is heading back to the ballpark for The Comebacker, a new baseball project. Heading back to the ballpark. I just adore these subject matter related puns. Uh, Tom Hanks is heading back to the ballpark for The Comebacker, a new baseball project which has three studios are in line to they want to distribute. They're battling for distribution rights for the film. And it's gonna be called The Comebacker. Marielle Heller, who directed Tom Hanks in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, that's the movie where he played Fred Rogers, is set to direct The Comebacker, and also wrote the script based on a short story by Dave Eggers. Tom Hanks will play a pitching coach of a major league hurler, major league pitcher. Tom Hanks will play a pitching coach of a major league hurler whose life is upended when he is hit in the head by a line drive on the mound. His life changes in all kinds of ways. So Tom Hanks will play the pitching coach. The pitcher gets hit, and shit happens. No word on who will play the pitcher alongside Tom Hanks. Okay. Hold on just a second. I'm getting. Hold on. Oh. Okay. So yeah. Okay, so first of all, Marielle Heller, who directed A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I loved that movie. My wife and I went to go see it. And this is, I just want to say this real quick. I'm always talking about the power of film. That movie, I say all the time, anybody who says, "Oh, it's just a movie," you can fuck right off, because I've been emotionally moved by quite a few movies. And, movies can reach you on an emotional level. I really believe that because I've experienced it. And A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was one of those movies. That movie made me cry because of the script. I thought the script was just beautiful, and um, you know, Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. It was just there's a scene in that movie that just broke me, and my wife, being the loving wife that she is, she's just like, it's okay. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's just I could relate to what's happening on screen. I loved that movie so much. So Marielle Heller directing this movie, I think is great. It's and I think Tom Hanks, he got an Oscar nomination for that movie, and it was well deserved. Um, so she's going to be directing this movie. Um, you know what's interesting about Tom Hanks's career is that he's he's done really a great job and really a seamless job at transitioning from the traditional leading man route to great supporting roles. Because a lot of actors struggle to, I mean, and let's be honest, and I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything, but um Tom Hanks's career is in it's starting to wind down, and it's a shame because he's great. Um, but it's in the latter. Tom Hanks's career is I think, um, it's it's on its, well. Let's look at how old he is. Okay, so Tom Hanks's career is in its third act, I guess is the best way to put it. But he's done a great job of transitioning from, like, he can be in a great supporting role, uh, like Elvis, and then he can also be a great lead in, what's the movie that he was in? Um, a Man Called Otto. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a heartbreaking movie. He's done a great job of switching, of going from a traditional leading man to great supporting roles and switching back and forth. And he's done it seamlessly. And I find that very, I think that's hard to do. I think because there are a lot of actors who, when they start transitioning to supporting, when they've been leading actors or actresses and then they start doing supporting roles, it means that their career is almost done. And I wouldn't say that his career is almost done. I think that it's it's in its third act, but I wouldn't say that it's it's going to end anytime soon. Um, but I do feel that that does happen with a lot of actors and actresses, but not with him. And he's done a great job at seamlessly transitioning from a leading man to a supporting role, back to a leading man, and it's and that speaks to how great he is. Um, you know, and even back when he was doing comedies like Big and Bachelor Party, which I kind of like Bachelor Party. um, but he made that transition from comedic actor to dramatic acting seamlessly. You know, everybody, at least in my opinion, he did. Um, I mean, it was wonderful. So, but Tom Hanks is going to play this pitching coach. I think this sounds interesting. You know, this uh, pitching coach who uh, the pitcher gets hit with a line drive, and their life changes. Which, you know, that shit happens. Like I've seen it. I'm not you know I've seen it happen, and it's scary. And I find this interesting because, you know, there's for those who don't watch baseball, you really can tell that they aren't just players on the field. Like they develop a bond and a kinship, and they're really a family. Uh, baseball teams and really sports teams in general, they become like a second family. And I find this the at least this synopsis interesting because um, I you know this pitching coach who, you know, the pitcher gets hit with a line drive, and how, and you know, I this relationship between the pitching coach and the pitcher, how that is affected, and what this injury could not only is not only going to do to the pitcher but also to the pitching coach, like, and how their friendship is tested, and how it makes their friendship stronger, and all those kinds of things. I find this really interesting. Um, I, uh, I think this sounds wonderful. And again, no word on who's going to play the pitcher uh, in the game, or in the movie. I'm sorry, but you know, um, it's going to be. This sounds really cool, and it sounds like it's going to tug at the heartstrings a little bit. And it's Tom Hanks, you know, so it's yeah. Um, and Mariel Heller coming off of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I think it's going to be great. I really do. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about The Comebacker. Going to be directed by Mariel Heller, starring Tom Hanks. Excuse me just a second. I just want to check. Speaking of baseball. Ugh. I hate when my teams are losing or lose. I hate it so much. Anyway, okay, one last thing here. So, I just want to say this real quick. I I know, like I am a huge film fan, obviously. I know that it sounds like I have a lot of favorite actors and actresses, and I do because I lot of watch a film. I watch a lot of movies, and you know, uh, sometimes. Speaking of the power of film, sometimes an actor's performance just captivates you, and you start following their career. You know, and I am one of those people. Like I see an actor or actress's performance, and I'm like, yeah, they were great, and I'm gonna start following their career. Um, on that note, one of my favorite actresses is an actress by the name of Alfre Woodard. Um, Alfre Woodard. Um, she well, first of all, she's a board member on the uh, Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the MPAA. Um, she was she was in this movie Primal Fear with Richard Gere. She was in this movie called Passion Fish with Mary McDonnell. She was in 12 Years a Slave. She was in Down in the Delta in 1998. She was even in. She was even in. There were a couple. There was one movie that was not so good that she was in, and it was like a glorified cameo. She was in the first Annabelle movie. And she was the movie's terrible, but she was great. She was also in. She made a cameo appearance, a brief cameo appearance, in in Captain America: Civil War, the third Captain America movie. She played the mother of. Okay, there's that scene in Captain America: Civil War after Tony makes his speech at the beginning of the movie, and he encounters this woman who hands him a photo of her son, Charlie Spencer. And she's like, you know, this is my son. You murdered him. You murdered him in Sokovia. You know, that's Alfre Woodard. And as a massive Alfre Woodard fan, I'm the guy in the movie theater watching the movie going, holy shit, that's Alfre Woodard. She was also in. She was she played Lily in Star Trek First Contact. That's the Star Trek movie with the Borg, for those who aren't up on Star Trek. And she's wonderful. She's absolutely fantastic in that movie. And there's the iconic scene of her and Patrick Stewart in Jean-Luc Picard's quarters. You know, where she and Jean-Luc Picard just go at it. They're yelling at each other, and it's fantastic, and she's great. So she's going to be in this kind of ensemble movie that's coming. This article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. Excuse me. Brandon Wilson. This article says Brandon Wilson from Nickel Boys, Soap Collins, who is a model. This article says, and Aaron Holiday from Sharp Objects are starring in Pockets of Heaven, the feature directorial debut of Maria Belafonte, granddaughter of Hollywood icon and civil rights trailblazer Harry Belafonte. Joining the ensemble are Oscar nominee Alfre Woodard, alongside with Jonas Gindin from Lurker and Gilberto Ortiz from Atropia. Uh, there's also making his feature acting debut in the film is rapper musician Mavi. Um, this article says, set against the backdrop of a Los Angeles wildfire evacuation, the film follows three young people from vastly different worlds, a privileged runaway from rehab and two unhoused 20-somethings surviving in a burn zone. As their lives intertwine, the film explores the fragile boundaries between love, addiction, and survival in modern Los Angeles. Okay, let me just say this. First of all, this sounds really interesting. This sounds like a great character study about like I love movies like this where a disaster brings different people together. Um, I love movies like that because it movies like that, and it's sad that I have to say this. I feel like movies like this where bad shit happens and it brings different people from different walks of life and who have had different experiences, traumatic events, movies that bring traumatic movies that have traumatic events that bring people together are really moving because they teach us that, and it's sad that I have to say this, these kinds of movies teach us that there's only one race, and that's the human race. Even though I doubt this movie's gonna, it's even though it's movies about different kinds of people, different races, different cultures, and them coming together to survive. And I love movies like that. And it's sad that movies have to teach us that, because I think we all should know that. We should just know it, that just because you're different, that doesn't make you any less of a person. Or just because you come from a different walk of life than I do, or just because you have darker skin than I do, that doesn't make you any less of a human being. Anyway, so lives intertwine. The film explores the fragile boundaries between love, addiction, and survival in modern Los Angeles. This sounds fascinating to me. Again, people from different walks of life coming together to survive this wildfire evacuation. That sounds intriguing. I have questions and concerns about the cast. You have a model, Soap Collins. You have this rapper, Mavi. I understand that there are people who from other artistic backgrounds who have transitioned to acting, and maybe that'll work out for this movie. I hope so, but I always have questions like I remember when Bad Bunny started acting. I'm like, really? I don't know, but he's okay. I mean, he's as an actor, he's okay. I've seen worse, and I'm saying this like he could probably act circles around me, that's for sure. But I just have concerns about that. I'm also concerned, well, and I've said this before, but Maria Belafonte, look, okay, first of all, her being the granddaughter of Harry Belafonte and is now the granddaughter of Harry Belafonte is now directing her first feature film. That's awesome. That being said, I hope it's good because and I've said this before, um, first time directors, their first feature, it can either make or break your career. So I hope it goes well. Alfre Woodard is going to be in this movie. I have it doesn't say who she's going to play. Um, but I am mostly interested in this movie, and nothing against. I am mostly interested in this movie because of the synopsis, because that sounds really interesting, and I love movies like that. Again, where something bad happens that brings people together, and that's happened in real life too. You know, um, so I love movies. I love when art imitates life. Um, and by the way, I you know people should always come together. It shouldn't take something bad happening to do that either. Um, I'm interested in this movie because the synopsis sounds interesting and because of Alfre Woodard. Um, I hope that the rest of this production goes well. I am concerned about people who have. I'm dubious about a first time director. I always am, and I'm dubious about a couple of the cast members because they've never acted before. I hope it goes well, and it sounds interesting. So, sorry if I got out in the weeds there with what I wanted to talk about regarding this movie, but jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Well, like I said, I know last time I said I'd be back on Sunday, but I wanted to do a show today because I felt the need to talk about a lot of things. Um, so I will be back next time um, with more stuff to talk about. Um, it may be it may be it may be this coming week. It might not be, but I will be back. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you continue to enjoy the show. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everybody is okay, and if you're not, I I hope that this show provides a brief break from whatever it is that you're going through. Um, as always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, I will see you at the movies.